Welcome back to the Occult Rejects, where we step beyond the boundaries of conventional history and investigate the symbols, mysteries, and forbidden questions that continue to shape the human imagination. Our guest tonight is William Henry, an author, television presenter, and investigative mythologist who has spent more than 3 decades exploring hidden connections between ancient civilizations, sacred art, mystical Christianity, Gnostic teachings, human consciousness, and the mystery of spiritual transformation. William is widely recognized for his appearances on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, where he also served as a consulting producer, as well as for his work on Gaia through programs such as The Awakened Soul, The Lost Science of Ascension, Arcanum, and Ascension Keepers. Across his books, lectures, television work, and international presentations, he has followed a remarkable trail through the temples of ancient Egypt, the imagery of medieval cathedrals, the teachings of Essenes and Gnostics, and the recurring traditions surrounding stargates, resurrection, transfiguration, and the human body of light. At the center of William's work is a question that may be more urgent today than ever before. What is the true potential of the human being? As artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and transhumanism promise to transform humanity from the outside, William asks whether the ancient mystery traditions preserved another path, a transformation from within, in which consciousness, spirit, and the human body become instruments of awakening rather than machines waiting to be replaced. Tonight, we are going beyond the television screen and directly into the symbols, stories, and sacred technologies that have defined William Henry's life work. We will explore ancient Egypt, mystical Christianity, the light body, ascension, not human intelligence, and I'm sure a bunch of other things. But before we introduce him, let me introduce the other rejects that have joined me today. Eric, thank you so much. Very happy to see you here, sir. Please let everybody know what is up with you and all your amazing work.
Thanks, Nick, Ethan, William. It's good to see you guys. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm excited for what will definitely be a really interesting conversation. You can find me online on YouTube at Eric Arcadian. I just dropped a new episode of my show, Music, Myth, and Magic, or you can grab a copy of my book, Fluid Condensers.
Awesome. Thank you very much for making it, sir. I appreciate it. And my man, Ethan Indigo, or Indigo, as some people call you now.
Yeah, any way you say it. And I'm excited to be here for all this, all you've explored on universal ascension, William, if you will. And I'm a writer, author as well. Great to be here with both you guys, Eric and Nick. Nick, that was the dopest introduction.
I really tried. Thank you. Thank you.
It was a great introduction.
Thank you.
And I'm on all the usual social media, and I appreciate people reaching out with communication. So again, great to be here with you guys.
Thank you. Always appreciate when you jump on, Ethan, and bring your perspective and questions. William Henry, please, sir. Very excited to have you here. Can you please let the people who may not know who you are, what your deal is, and where they can find anything you'd like to promote?
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's so great to be here talking with you guys. Thank you very much for your time. My name is William Henry. My website is iamwilliamhenry.com. You can find all my social connections there, information about my latest book, The Psychedelic Christ, as well as some of the content that I've recently put up. You'll find the Starwalker Cafe there, which is really the repository for like 20 years of postings that I've done, as well as some videos as well.
Oh, that is great. Awesome stuff. So I guess for the listeners and people who really don't know much about you, I myself don't kind of really know the backstory, but if maybe you can give us a little bit of an idea of like, how did you even find yourself getting into this area of work and investigation?
Oh, right. Well, I started, I was in college in 1982. I had moved from Detroit to Nashville, where I lived for 40 years. I'm a musician. I planned to be an entertainment lawyer, and I found myself at this small Southern Baptist college in Nashville that offered an entertainment music business program. So get ready to go work on Music Row or Hollywood or whatever. But the catch was you had to take Bible study classes. And I knew nothing about the Bible as an 18-year-old. I like to say that in our home, the 4 apostles were Waylon, Willie, Chris, and Johnny. And church was Johnny Cash records on Sunday morning and Colorado Magazine in the afternoon. I mean, I just had no connection to it at all. But because I'm at this Baptist college, we had to take Bible study classes. And in my sophomore year, a professor assigned us to go to the local bookstore, find a new book, a contemporary book whose implications would impact Christianity, and write a 3-page review. Well, this is 1982. There's an international best-selling book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And the premise of the book is that the crucifixion's a hoax. Jesus and Mary Magdalene are married. They have children. There's a tiny hilltop village in southern France called Rennes-le-Château where they stashed all their secrets. The church knows all about this. They exterminated as many as 1 million people called Cathars in southern France in the 13th century in the first European genocide to keep this knowledge from gaining any currency. And I wrote a 44-page review. I was hooked, and I was flunked too. The professor said, "You believe this crap?" And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about Christianity. I read this book. I'm really interested in this subject. It's lit me up. I wrote a 44-page review. And he's like, yeah, it was supposed to be 3, right? And so they basically invite me to go continue my education elsewhere. I'm not appropriate for asking appropriate questions for a Southern Baptist college. And so I did. I left. I became an autodidact and spent the next 10 years endlessly researching in a disciplined way, focused on mostly the Gnostic mysteries, early Christian history. What do you mean humans can turn into angels? And there's this ascension process and all these kinds of ideas. And then I started writing books professionally in 1991 and have not looked back since. So that's, 35 years.
That's awesome. I like that. It's really interesting. I guess maybe, I've even realized myself recently as like, I would consider myself a cultist or a ceremonial magician, but I did originally start off as a Christian and kind of, at some points Catholic, but mainly a Christian. And lately I have been like really, really interested in Gnosticism because it really just makes whole of Christianity's history just seem so much more richer and interesting. So there's like a side of it, like I don't even think most people realize.
Well, they don't. And, part of the reason why is because it is still relatively new, culturally speaking. The Gnostic Gospels aren't discovered till 1945 in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, Dead Sea Scrolls, a couple of years later in Qumran. We're still just a couple of generations that really are wanting to understand these Gnostic Gospels, look at Christianity through a fresh lens, through an actual historical lens rather than a religious lens, and try to make out what exactly were they talking about back then, and how come we only now, 1900 years after the religion really is consolidated, this is now the time when we start to get access to some of this knowledge and information.
Yeah. Great. And I think it's great, but yeah, I'm wondering now because of that. I mean, maybe that's why I do have an affinity still for, I guess, Christianity, even though I consider myself a ceremonial magician. But very interesting.
Jesus was a magi too.
See, that's how I look at it as well. Yeah.
I mean, come on. One of the early images that I locked onto was Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead with a magic wand.
Yeah, he's got a stick in his hand.
What's that? It turns out there's a whole prehistory for that it was a branch made from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden. It's exported out of Eden. It's passed along a family bloodline. Jesus gets a hold of it, and lo and behold, it's this incredible instrument of transmutation. All of the miracles of transmutation, bread into wine, loaves to fishes, raising Lazarus, were all performed with this magi's wand, and then all of a sudden they get rid of it. In the 4th century, you never hear any talk about it again. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I want to know about that.
Yeah, I've seen some stuff like that. It's really interesting. Not to keep going on the topic, we'll get to something else. But it's really interesting when you look at for me, I've looked at some of the art that might have been like, very old in certain areas. And you start seeing Jesus depicted very differently than how we have him now.
It's
like
true.
Very more esoteric. He's got a wand in his hand. Sometimes he even looks, I'll keep it real, looks androgynous. Like
clean shaven.
Yeah,
right.
That too. Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Like he just doesn't look the same as he's depicted now in his acts.
No, I think those are images of a younger Jesus, perhaps, because then the face gets codified early on. By the 5th century, they knew exactly what Jesus looked like. The icon of Christ Pantocrator at Mount Sinai clearly shows exactly the same face as that on the Shroud of Turin, which many people believe is the actual resurrection shroud of Christ. And it establishes early on that they did have an idea of actually what he actually looked like.
What is your opinion on that shroud?
Having experienced it twice within 5 feet of it in Turin, both in 2010 and 2015 when it went on display. I think I go along with what Pope Francis said. It's an icon of love. And in Catholic speak, an icon is a very specific term. It's a two-way mirror. It's a two-way method of communication. It's a conduit. It's not a static piece of art. It's not a relic. An icon is very specific Catholic speak for engaging with an avatar through a mirror that happens to be a work of art. And the idea is that this work of art is a living image. An icon is capable of transmitting the vibration of the resurrection through the shroud. This is something the church doesn't like to admit, but they're moving in this direction when they call it an icon of love.
Ooh. That's interesting. I can't remember. There was somebody I covered a long time ago. I think they were like either a philosopher, an occultist, or something. Where I think they had a problem with the church because they were against he pulled down all his stuff out of his room and would not have any pictures of anybody or any icons. And they actually had a problem with him doing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
I can't remember who it was. I wish I could remember.
Yeah, this whole idea of icons. It's an important story, I think, as an art aficionado or historian. The first Christians didn't have books per se. They had papyruses, they had scrolls written on lambskin or other things, but they were art driven. And the Gnostics in the Corpus Hermeticum, there's an expression: the image will show us the way. And what this meant was that the image itself is the gospel. The image can speak to us at an energetic level. As an avatar, the ascended Christ has the ability to transmit his vibration through the image, especially those where you get eye-to-eye, soul-to-soul contact. And I found that to be so fascinating. And that explains why when Islam came onto the scene, they called the early Christians a bunch of idol-worshiping hillbillies, telling them, y'all are worshiping these works of art, and that's idolatry in Islam. We don't make any works of art. And they destroyed all of the earliest Christian works of art. And this was a tragic loss, in my opinion, because the primary piece of imagery that the first Christians worked with were, of course, the transfiguration images, where Jesus morphs into a plasma state, what we think of as a plasma state. His face shines like the sun, his clothing becomes bright as white light. And the idea is that as you're contemplating and meditating, reflecting on the icon of the transfiguration, your body knows how to do this, and it's kickstarting this process of yourself manifesting this light body.
I could be wrong, because you said something plasma just now. Wasn't there possibly Gnostic sects that even were questioning if he was ever even in the form, or if he was a spirit or something like that too, right?
Yeah, sure was. The Cathars, well, first the Gnostics questioned this, and then of course the Cathars in the 13th century believed the same thing. They had this conception, the Gnostics did, and so did the later Cathars. It's a similar teaching, if not identical, that this world that we live in is an imitation world. It's corrupt. It was created by Rex Mundi, the king of the world. And there was no conceivable way in the Gnostic or the Cathar mind that a divine being like Christ could manifest in a physical flesh and blood form in this layer of reality, in this realm of matter. Therefore, he couldn't be crucified either. And so that was their reason for saying that. And of course, their whole modus operandi was, how do we exit from this layer of creation? How do we escape this fake world? And of course, what we're talking about here is the foundation for modern simulation theory. It maps onto it directly. But the Gnostics and the Cathars were thinking about this for millennia before modern computer theorists.
Oh yeah. No, my opinion, the Matrix. It's all Gnosticism.
Exactly. But there's an exit from the Matrix, and this is something I don't know if they really explored enough in those films. This idea that we can transform or transfigure and connect with source reality, with our true divine light self, and ultimately exit or ascend from this realm, this layer.
Yeah, it does have that aspect to it. Eric or Ethan, did any of you have any questions before we keep going, or want to say anything?
I want to piggyback off the icon thing because my mind is spinning with that. So, William, is it more with the icons? Is it more tied to the item itself, or is it just the image? Like if I print an image that's the same as one of these icons, does it have the same effect energetically?
I think it does have the same effect. In my presentations, when I'll put up some of these icons on the screen in a darkened room, people are suddenly going, "Whoa!" I'm linking, I'm connecting, and they get you can call it a transmission, a download from the image, because the idea is while the image is curated, the artist has gone into meditation and prayer, focusing on the creation of the canvas, focusing on the paints or pigments that are involved, and in some way trying to channel a divine light into the medium itself. The idea is that Christ as the avatar, or any other avatar, as that state of being, has the ability to transmit their vibration or image through the painting. So I think it's kind of a combination of both, but I think it works whether the image is on a computer screen, your phone screen, or if you printed it and it's on the wall or on your desk.
Yeah, I think I could see that working the same. I also think just when it comes to like certain stuff I've even looked into for, I guess, ceremonial magic, which I do think some would tie over. Sometimes just even I guess the being told the idea and what you believe it to be, when you have that and then looking at the image, really makes a connection. So
totally agree. Placebo effect is an important part of it, without a doubt.
And again, I'm not knocking Christianity when I say this, Gnosticism or whatever it was back in the day, but even when they used to do baptismals, from what I looked into, they seemed very big with the art to kind of give you ideas of what you're really going through and experiencing when you do that baptism. And I think that really kind of like hits people harder before they do it.
It does. It was, maybe it's hard for some of us to imagine that in our era where we're oversaturated with images online and on computers. But back then, let's say 1,000 years ago, you go into a cathedral that's lit by candlelight, and you go up to the altar and there's this image of Christ transfiguring into light. And you can only imagine the magic, the potency of such an image. The Mystic Lamb by John Van Eyck is another good example. It's considered the most controversial, most stolen painting of all human history. And it portrays this scene, this Edenic scene with the lamb being on top of an altar, or with a cross beside it, and a gathering of these saints and angels. And the idea was that as you're looking at this painting while the mass is conducted, you're to visualize yourself participating in what's happening in the painting. It's not a static image. It's something for you to inject your own imagination into and to participate in. And of course, again, that's something we don't even think about today, watching TV and things like that.
Yeah. Very well said. Thank you. Ethan, did you have anything, or not to put you on the spot?
Yeah, I think you probably get into this, but I wonder if they're with, say, the Tibetan rainbow body and the innumerable meditation processes that they teach, and maybe have different interpretations or layers of teachings through these on the way to that idea. I wonder if you've found or been able to glean any meditation instructions from any of the Gnostic texts, whether they're overt or implied.
Well, yeah, in fact, I'm glad you bring up the rainbow light body and the Padmasambhava teaching, because that's actually where I started to understand, or first heard this concept that Padmasambhava is this rainbow light body guru, can transmit the vibration of the rainbow light body through the image. I was up at the Rubin Museum in Manhattan, and they happen to have a recreation of what they call the Dalai Lama's secret temple. It once existed behind the Potala Palace in Lhasa in Tibet. And this is where the Dalai Lamas went to learn about the rainbow light body. And this room isn't very big. It's, say, 12 feet, 14 feet in diameter. It's circular, and it's only composed of images of beings manifesting the rainbow light body. And the idea is that this is how this teaching is transmitted. Yes, there's meditations. It's so complicated. It's mind-blowingly complicated, the process for attaining the rainbow light body, but yet it's utterly simple in its first steps. The idea that you're linking with the guru through the image and allowing Padmasambhava to enter consciousness and to begin to transfigure you.
Beautiful. That's amazing. You got to visit that.
Oh, it was so cool. Absolutely amazing. And of course, Padmasambhava is considered the second Buddha. He was a master of space and time. And this is why it gets so incredibly complicated. And this is something I've thought about a lot in relation to ancient aliens and the ancient astronaut theory, this idea that we've been visited in the ancient past. And my specialty started to evolve into these avatars that have the ability to borrow a Star Trek term, to beam themselves through the cosmos. This is the rainbow light body principle, that once you dissolve your physical flesh and blood body into your true flesh, the rainbow light body, you can then project, or quote unquote beam yourself to another world and phase back into another physical flesh and blood body if you would choose to do so. And I'm thinking, yeah, that'd be my route for traveling the cosmos. You're not going to get very far in a rocket ship or a Bezos rocket or anything like that. You know, we might get to the moon or Mars, but all the good stuff is far, far beyond that. So how do we do it? And the Tibetans come in with an answer based on their tradition. And what's so cool about it that always stuck with me is that they tell us that this rainbow light body teaching is taught in 13 star systems, including our own, with beings coming and going from all these various star systems manifesting in this level of existence, in this body, this rainbow light body.
And Padmasambhava is this amazing, very much Tahuti wisdom teacher that, as you said, crosses space and time. What are not the relics, but the wisdom teachings that he has left in all these different coordinates that he has psychic visits to people in Tibet to find?
Exactly.
I mean, if half of those are true, it's just mind-boggling.
It sure is. And you mentioned Tahuti. In my own personal experience, I match him up more with Ptah. Padmasambhava is phonetically the same as Padmasambhava, and they essentially are doing the same thing. And when you put the Egyptian images of Padmasambhava in the crossed garment, as the Egyptians called it, next to Ptah, the similarity is really striking. And I think that there's definitely a worthy parallel to compare, as I've done, and I'm sure others have done it too, the images of Ptah or Osiris in his resurrection body, virtually interchangeable with the Tibetan rainbow light body imagery. And in fact, that's how it started with me. Is I was at a UFO conference in like 2006, and this couple comes up to me and they say that they work for the Dalai Lama. They have PhDs from the Harvard Divinity School. Their specialty is the Tibetan rainbow light body. And they tell me that my work in Egypt with the arcs of the millions of years, the ship of eternity of the perfected ones in the Egyptian tradition, answered for them a question about the rainbow light body that the Tibetans wouldn't answer because they didn't know the answer or because it was secret. And my response was, what's a rainbow light body? And they give me a really quick introduction to it. And that launches me on this whole line of research to incorporate this really incredible teaching, the Great Perfection or Rainbow Light Body, is a way of running parallels through other traditions, including Christianity, the resurrection tradition, and the Egyptian star walking tradition. It's all the same teaching, and none of it is specific to those traditions. It's not Christian, it's not Egyptian, it's not Tibetan. It's cosmic. It's taught in a bunch of places, maybe even 13 star systems, including our own.
That's amazing.
Ethan, Eric, did you have anything? No. I was actually going. I think maybe we'd stay on the Christianity, but now since you went back kind of to Egypt, I did have a few questions.
Anywhere. Sorry about that.
No, you're totally fine. No, totally fine. I felt bad. I was going to skip questions from Egypt and go into Christianity, but since we're back to Egypt, that works. Do you think the pyramids were meant to like transform people spiritually rather than simply kind of honor the dead, as we're told? They're kind of like, for that reason.
I totally believe that. And that just goes back to the ancient Egyptians themselves. Mark Lehner is a very well-known mainstream Egyptologist. He always quotes I.E.S. Edwards, who was one of the first British authors to write books about the pyramid. I think he wrote one called The Complete Pyramid. And he said that the original Egyptian hieroglyph for the pyramid meant instrument of ascension or place of ascension.
I think that's
And I fundamentally believe that that's true, that when you couple that hardware of the pyramid with the software of the pyramid text that tells about the transfiguration of the king into lightning and the portals and gateways into the heavenly realms opening for the king, it suggests to me that that is exactly what the pyramid was used for. It was perhaps it facilitated that transfiguration. Perhaps it was used as a portal or gateway. We don't know for sure, but wow, we're certainly living in a time where that Giza sphere is coming alive, and it seems to me as if it's getting ready to cough up some major revelations.
Oh, you think all that stuff that's going on over there with the stuff that they found underneath, you think that's gonna make it big eventually?
I hope so. I was initially incredibly skeptical about it. I thought it was ridiculous,
That's good.
and then just kept listening, kept an open mind about what they were saying, and looked at the evidence that they provided, especially around the Osiris shaft, and comparing the SARS technology that we're talking about with what is actually on the ground in Giza. And that started me to move the needle. I was, again, initially like this. I moved to here, and now I'm more like this, and waiting for the next step. Can't wait to see the next revelation. It's going to be really fascinating to see where this goes.
Yeah, I'll admit when I first came across that stuff, I was a little skeptical, and then I happened to have I was lucky enough to where I ended up going to Cosmic Summit in 2025.
Oh, cool.
And I met the scientist, and since I had a press pass, I was able to do like even a private interview with them in another room where we all got to ask them questions. And I have to say, afterwards, I was a lot more impressed. I being able to even see them and talk to them and hear them explain everything.
I totally agree. I mean, Philippa Bondi, what a gentleman, super nice guy, very humble. There's just nothing about the ego that I was able to detect there. In fact, it was funny. I did a talk with them last summer at the Gaia Sphere in Colorado for Gaia. And I was talking about what I call the Osiris device, which I think is a lost piece of ancient Egyptian resurrection technology. And I come off the stage, and Philippa Bondi and Armando May are standing there with these giant smiles on their face to meet me. Philippa's got a phone in his hand, and he's like, we saw this scan, and we didn't know what it was. And we just realized watching your presentation that that's the Osiris device that we were looking at in this scan. So I'm going to see him again in a few weeks, and I'm looking very much forward to circling back with him and seeing, hey, anything more about the Osiris device or what's going on with all of this.
That is awesome. That's great that you'll be able
to. It was so cool. It really was.
Good stuff. Yeah, for myself, I've always thought that those pyramids were something of more like a Stargate, like you said, or maybe like, this may sound like silly, or maybe I just don't know a better way of like saying it, but like almost like projecting your soul to somewhere else. Like maybe it was fine-tuned to go to a certain area.
Absolutely. Because what you're hitting on there, I think, is one of the really vital points about this. And that I think a lot of people get a little off track. You mentioned Stargate, and we all kind of cut our teeth on that movie, 1996. These guys, Kurt Russell taking a nuclear missile through a Stargate to another planet. Really? No. I mean, anything you read about Stargates in the ancient world, including the pyramid, is that there's a transformation of the human before that journey is made. The physical flesh and blood body is transmuted into a form that can make that journey. Yeah. It will never, ever, I don't think, unless, I can't imagine a technology can do this, that can really make the flesh and blood body go through the gateway. All of the ancient texts describe that we transfigure it first, then we go through the gateway.
No, yeah, awesome. I dig it. I'm definitely down with that theory. Did any of you have anything before I keep going? No. All right. When you study the Sahu, the Ka, and the Ba, do you see metaphor or ancient map of consciousness? If I even said those correctly.
I do. My logo is Sahu or Orion, and we see him. This is from Sarcophagus, Merenptah, one of the sons of King Seti. I had just fun backstory. I've been to Egypt 34 times, and for the first 10, 15 times I would go, I would make a beeline into the old Egyptian Museum in Cairo to the Merenptah sarcophagus. And I would try to get in there to get a photo of Sahu on the ship of eternity, looking back holding a star, which the Egyptians said was also a gate. And I ultimately made that my logo. I changed it just a little bit, so it's more mine. But my point is that logo of Sahu on the Ark of the Millions of Years, when I first looked at that in 1998, I thought that looks exactly like the way modern science portrays a wormhole. And they used to laugh at me in Egypt about that. Oh, yeah, there's that guy, he thinks the ancient Egyptian gods, the ship of eternity is a wormhole. And I'm like, yeah, but what if they had that level of consciousness? What if this is what we're talking about here? I mean, everybody over here, all my colleagues are like the stones and bones types. You know, how did they lift those blocks? How did they move those pyramid stones? How did they build the pyramid? And I'm like, why did they do that? They did it so that they could enter into this higher state of consciousness and being they called Sahu or Orion or the perfected ones and so forth. And so I started just to work with all the symbols of that logo, the Ark of the Millions of Years, the Uaz scepter, and the meaning behind that, and ultimately the star. And I think you're absolutely right. It is, I put it this way, my logo, that image of Sahu on the Ark with the rod and with the staff and the star distills what, 3,500, 4,000 years of ancient Egyptian metaphysical belief into a single image. I think that's what we're dealing with. It's like an icon, and you click on that image, and here comes this incredible ancient science of transformation.
Yeah, it's almost like spiritual alchemy, maybe, in a sense.
It really is, and I think we're living in a time now. I can look at the Ark of the Millions of Years and say it's a wormhole. I think we're looking at a time now, or living in a time now, where we're returning to that level of consciousness that built the pyramids. I mean, we've gone through this period of many, many thousands of years. We can argue about how many, but a long time of being pretty ignorant, of having a lot of the secrets veiled from us. But now we're coming back into the light, so to speak, where we're able to comprehend what some of these mysteries are actually all about.
Yeah. Yeah.
William, you mentioned sorry, Nick, what were you going to say?
Oh, no.
You mentioned the was symbol, the staff, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I wonder if you might break that down a little bit and maybe by way of its combination with the Ankh and the Djed, is that of significance?
Sure.
I've seen they're in combination frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're mentioning, that Uaz scepter is a combination of the Uaz, the Ankh, and Djed. And these are the three primary symbols of Ptah and also Osiris. You can think of it almost as like an all-purpose Swiss Army knife gadget for the ancient Egyptians. The Uaz in particular, it looks, the bottom of it resembles a tuning fork. And I think that's ultimately what it is. When you've got Sahu or Orion holding this staff in his hand, traveling on the Ark of the Millions of Years from Earth to Orion, it's telling me that he is in resonance with the divine cosmos. The way I characterize it is the vibration that represents is like take your greatest orgasm and multiply it by XXXXX, and now you're coming close to the level of bliss and joy that these figures are in as they're traveling the cosmos. And this is like a challenge for us, is to bring that vibration up from within us, because I furthermore believe that there's an anatomical correspondence to that Uaz, Ankh, and Djed. And that, of course, is our spinal cord. We're to recognize that our body itself is that resonance device, and we're to learn to activate it and to utilize it for the purpose it was designed, as a transmutational device. And then that brings us to the Tet pillar, the four arms of the Tet, the backbone of Osiris, they call it, the power pillar sometimes. That maps directly onto the Christian cross. That is the origin of the Christian cross, as an instrument of transmutation. And then up on top, you'll sometimes see the Ankh included with it, the unity of heaven and earth, the unity of male and female. This is like all these encoded principles that we're supposed to ultimately embody, I think.
That's a great. Thank you for sharing that. It's the vibration idea is very similar to the raising of chi, of course, and any number of other ways to look at it. But it really starts with a literal shaking inside the body.
Yeah, exactly. That quaking and shaking that everybody's talking about, and the tingling and all of that. Yeah, exactly. It's a visceral experience. It's a felt experience.
I had another question. Maybe besides your logo or the symbol that you use in your logo, and because the question I had, everybody always thinks of the eye horse as like the biggest, Egyptian symbol. Is there something that you think is assembled by them that gets kind of swept under the rug, or people don't notice or know, that you think is extremely important to know of?
Another symbol?
Yeah.
Well, definitely in ancient Egypt, the bread symbol, symbolic of the manna, the star food. That one's very important. But really, to me, the ultimate symbol, I think, is the boat, the Ark of the Millions of Years. Just because it's our vehicle, it's our method of transportation. And I'm just really fascinated by the sci-fi nature of the ancient mind. I mean, they thought like we do, but maybe sometimes had even crazier ideas than we have today, based on our understanding of technology. And like an example, relative to the boat, one of my favorite stories is from the Nordic tradition. Skiblafnir is the name of the boat of the gods of Asgard. And they can fly around on this boat and bring their horses with them. And when they're done with the boat, one of the guys can fold it up and put it in his pocket. And when they want the boat again, he just unfolds it, and the gods of Asgard, off they go. And I'm thinking, who thinks about something like that 1,000 years ago? Where's this coming from? I mean, surely they didn't witness this, or did they? Or, where's an idea like that come from? We've always thought in these sci-fi terms. And I find it just incredibly fascinating to look at those stories and to think about where did they come from?
Yeah. I've thought of that specifically. That's funny you mentioned the Ark. I think that's a very important symbol, just because, well, one, for me, just ideas that I have about it, but two, like you were saying, you will see that idea throughout so many different beliefs and pantheons.
Yeah.
There's got to be something heavy behind that.
Yeah. And they almost always, the boat ultimately represents our soul. Our soul is an enchanted boat. It is the vehicle. And we hide it within, but the boat's always there for us. And that's kind of a comforting message to me. It's like, oh yeah, I do have one of these boats. I just stuck it in my pocket, forgot about it, but I can whip it out and utilize it at some point if I decide to, or I'm dedicated to it, or whatever.
No, I like that. Erica, Ethan, did you guys have anything before I keep going?
I was just going to add that it seems like the boat has 8 parts, which is always a neat phenomenon of correspondence. But Eric, please.
Well, I just got a curious question, right? So we talked about some of the iconography resembling a tuning fork a little bit. We talked about the idea of like frequency and vibration. And there's a whole trove of people who believe that there were certain chambers in the pyramids that were like used as resonance chambers with sound waves and stuff like that. So, William, do you think some of this like ascension actually requires tones and actual sound waves, or are we talking about vibration more on an energetic and spiritual level?
I think it's all levels, really. I mean, in my understanding, the Egyptians used multiple technologies: tones, lights, plants, even psychedelic plants in this process, ultimately to manufacture, if you will, to make what they describe as a non-molecular light body into which our consciousness can be deposited. We can travel the cosmos, because again, this physical flesh and blood body isn't going anywhere. It's made for this planet only. It's not going with us anywhere. And unless we turn ourselves into machines, and even then we're not going to get very far. And so the idea is we want to recognize this message the ancients were always telling us, is that this body's temporary. it's meant to be transformed. We got to learn to utilize it for the purpose that it was created, not just as a vehicle for incarnation and exploration while we're in this layer of creation, but ultimately it's our gateway into higher layers as well.
Yeah, I dig that.
To that, I wonder if you've heard certain historical stories or observations of visitors to the pyramid that described some kind of like Schumann resonance, like vibration, come as they approach the pyramid. Have you heard any stories of that?
Oh yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure I don't know that much enough about sound and frequency and the pyramid's relationship to the earth, but I've been in that king's chamber many, many times and felt what I would consider to be the Schumann resonance or the pulse of the earth, and maybe even heard it as well. If that's possible, if the pyramid could act as like a transducer so that I could then feel it and possibly even hear it. I mean, it seems pretty logical, and I think well-founded in science, that the pyramid is some sort of a device that couples to the earth, uses not only terrestrial energies or frequencies, but also cosmic ones as well, and unites them in this experience. And I really do believe that we're on the cusp of understanding the pyramid more than any human since the time the pyramid was built. I mean, there's so many incredibly brilliant minds that are focused on it right now. And there just, again, seems to be this almost a destiny that the pyramid has, that it's time for it to quote unquote wake up again.
I like that. Thank you. Eric, Ethan, you guys both good? All right.
Have you guys been to Egypt, by the way? Have you?
No. I want
Jealous.
so bad. Especially after this. After hearing all this, I'm like, oh God, I gotta go.
Yeah, that's kind of like a really great, it's not just a trip of a lifetime. When you come face to face with it and you're feeling it yourself, it gives you an enhanced perspective about it. Doesn't mean you can't understand it without going there, but there's just nothing like standing on that Giza plateau and realizing where you're at and what you're potentially looking at.
May I ask?
Go ahead.
Did you ever go by yourself, or did you always go with groups? And how much was traveling part of your autodidactic pursuits as you began that in the 80s, as you were describing earlier?
Yeah,
before the internet, self-learning before the internet. For those that I'm understating the obvious. Sorry.
yeah. I'm one of the OGs. I was there before the internet, and actually reading books and going to libraries and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and traveling. I mean, it's so vital. It really is. It unlocks things that a book can take you so far. But when you get to a place, and it doesn't have to be even any place special, I encourage people that are doing research, hey, focus on what's in your backyard. Just within probably 3 miles of where any of the listeners live, there's going to be some weird bit of symbolism somewhere, maybe in a cemetery, maybe in a store, maybe wherever. And you can start to embrace it there and still get into the energy of these mysteries really easily. And so, yeah, the travel bit became very, very important. I'm very privileged to be able to have done as much travel as I have. I tend to go to the same places over and over again. I'm just sort of a creature of habit. Southern France, England, Italy, Egypt. They just have called me, and I just love all those places.
So you have been there by yourself to Egypt?
No. I have not been in the pyramid by myself. No. Mm-mm.
And do you recommend one or the other for people?
Sure. I mean, not had the experience, I can't vouch for it, but I can vouch for the group experience. There's just something about the dynamic. When you're in the pyramid with a group, you might have someone with a particularly beautiful voice or might have a deep baritone voice. And suddenly that granite is just like resonating and better than I could do with my own voice. And I find that to be really a fascinating part of it, that each group is so different, and the experiences might sometimes match the group. The first time I went into the pyramid, I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I I'd been studying Egypt. It's so overwhelming, so bewildering. You just kind of forget everything you've ever read when you're there, because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have a brain capacity to really take all of this in. But we're in the king's chamber, and we go to our meditation period, and I close my eyes, and all of a sudden I've got the blue eye of Horus in my consciousness. And it's at that moment that I realized, oh, wait a minute, I think that the Eye of Horus could be like a consciousness component to the building itself, the stone, the limestone, the granite, that's the hardware of this incredible device or instrument. And maybe the Eye of Horus is the software. And I realized at that moment I was going to be spending a long time, like probably the rest of my life, trying to figure out what the heck was going on with the blue Eye of Horus in my meditation in the king's chamber.
It's really interesting. I've heard a lot of blue light experiences with stuff like that. I think like even Crowley, like not to bring him up, but like when he went to the pyramid and I think he, channeled the Book of the Law. I'm pretty sure he said at one point like a blue light lit up.
I'm not
There's
surprised.
a lot of occultists and a lot of people where they have this blue light experience.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's fascinating. I started on that path because of my Eye of Horus research. I learned about a physicist who said that, if you're some super advanced civilization, you're not going to send out spaceships or maybe even probes to another planet. But what you would do is you might have some sort of a advanced technology where you could send out a light probe that could search for illuminated consciousness or enhanced consciousness. And if that probe detects a consciousness, then it could open to the size of a wormhole where the person at the home planet could step through that portal, or someone at the visiting planet could also step through that portal. And this led into a Swami Muktananda described this blue light as the light of our soul. It comes from within the pineal gland. We can open it up. It can become a portal. I mean, it gets really, really interesting, that whole line of thinking around that blue light. So totally agree with you.
There's something that was awesome. When you said blue light, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to ask, only because I've heard, I think it was Billy Carson said it recently, and there was a time when I did cover a couple of places, and I was just kind of going over like maybe the effects of being surrounded just by massive amounts of stone can start like even almost affecting your, the body in a sense. He was saying that they're finding out now that like time might kind of actually go a little bit slower within the pyramid. Have you heard that?
I have not. I mean, that sounds like a really definitive scientific experiment that you could run. I wouldn't know how to design that experiment, but it seems like it could be possible.
Yeah, he had said something recently that is an effect of all the stone. I don't know. I figured I'd ask you.
Okay.
Yeah. Now back, I actually wanted to kind of go back. You had mentioned France. Before I go back to what I wanted to get into, maybe we'll jump to that. What got you interested in you got into like a lot of symbolism with France, correct? What made you pick France out of all places? I find that very interesting.
Yeah, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the Magdalene Trail, all the Christian legends that Mary Magdalene brought the Holy Grail to southern France, and Lazarus went to Marseille, and of course it's a extraordinarily beautiful place in the foothills of the Pyrenees when you're on the Magdalene and Cathar country. I became deeply interested in their story, so it just kept calling me back.
I myself have been interested in France. I think people kind of sleep on that country as being a country that has like some rich occult, maybe history and art and stuff to it.
Oh, it's incredible, from north to south. The Rosicrucian history there, and there's still to this day there's even quote unquote forces that seek to suppress the mysteries of southern France. Of course, it all got raked up with Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and then Da Vinci Code. Transformed it into this mystic Disneyland practically for a decade or so. And now here we are. It's settled back down, but the allure and the mystery continues.
What was it that I guess maybe got you at first, really? interested? Like it really hooked you?
Part of it, of course, is the allure of treasure. I mean, the gold of Solomon's temple,
Oh,
the secret books of Jesus, all of this. I mean, I was one of those going to Rennes-le-Chateau in the mid 90s with a treasure map thinking, I might be able to find the
oh,
actual treasure here. And then
doing some
learning
Indiana Jones stuff at this point.
Indiana Jones stuff, right? And
That's
then
awesome.
realizing it's more of a consciousness type of a thing. And
Yeah.
continuing to go back, because you mentioned the Terma tradition earlier, Padmasambhava, hiding this knowledge in valleys and in landscapes. And I thought, wow, this is what they're talking about in southern France too, that maybe Mary Magdalene or Padmasambhava or Jesus or somebody deposited this knowledge in the land. Because when I was first going there, I was involved with some not priestesses per se, but females that were very scholarly, but very at the same time rooted in the land. So when I was first going there, they're like, what's really important are not the churches, it's the caves, it's the rivers, it's the lakes, it's the mountains, it's all those places. And I started to understand that the landscape itself is infused with this mystery. It's in the air, it's in the ground, it's in the grapes and the wine you drink. It's everywhere. And so when you're there, you're just really feeling saturated or imbued with those mysteries.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned caves. I find those very interesting, just from like starting to look at certain stuff. Even a lot of like I guess like their theory or their pantheon or their idea of like how they, the cosmos was made, or wherever the living was made, even seems to be a little bit different than structures that are built above ground. So I've even noticed some differences, and some of those seem older than the things are built, but than the structures above ground. So it makes you wonder, like, who knows?
Without a doubt. And that, it gets mysterious too, because all the caves, at least especially in southern France, I mean, there's all these legends that they're actually inner earth openings.
Yeah.
And this idea that you're driving along, you see this cave opening, you're like, where does that lead? Mm-hmm. And then you see these people walking around sometimes that you're like, you're not from around here type of thing. And you wonder, is that actually true? And I think there's probably a lot of validity to it. I'm not a spelunker per se. You're not going to catch me going 3 miles into some cave somewhere looking for Shambhala, but who knows? Maybe it's possible.
And just very interesting stories and ideas behind what they're used for and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this worked out great how we went into France and you kind of got into this. Perfect segue into what I wanted to get into next was what role does Mary Magdalene play in the hidden Christian tradition that you think isn't commonly taught or known?
Well, for certain, I think what is not commonly taught or known, at least in my opinion and my assessment of the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene and her role after the resurrection and ascension, I start to think of her as almost like the ringleader of the whole thing. She's running the show. She's the wife. She's Almadura. She's boss lady. She's
probably even funding them, I think, right?
She's funding.
If you want to look at it that way.
She's wealthy. She's the financier along with Joseph of Arimathea. They're both, Joseph and Mary are both what are called miraphors. They're masters in sacred plants, plant medicines. They're making up all these oils, the resurrection oil. And then she is the one that carries on after the resurrection and ascension. And so for a long time, I've really characterized Jesus as Mary Magdalene's daredevil test pilot. Here, honey, let's see if the oil works today, and that's kind of not a common perception of Mary Magdalene, definitely not the Catholic perspective. But this is all starting really to evolve. I'm fascinated by what's happening in and around the area of Mary Magdalene. I've recently commented that I've been going to Rennes-le-Chateau in that area, Mary Magdalene country, for 30 years. I've witnessed several different waves of Magdalene frequency rising, studies, what have you. I mean, back in the 90s, as I said, most of the women that I knew that were studying this were very earthy, connected with the ground, academic, scholarly, reading the books, but ultimately they want to get out onto the land. And then after Da Vinci Code, it seems as if you get a whole spate of these fictional novels where the author is acting as if she is Mary Magdalene through her version of Mary Magdalene. But we're supposed to come back and understand that this fictional account's actually talking about her. And so we went through that phase. And now we're in the Instagram phase. We're in the influencer phase. They're all wearing these beautiful dresses. They're dressing alike. They're embracing this goddess Magdalene frequency, and they're not really that concerned about being grounded either in the land or in the texts. They're like, hey, we're downloading the new code. We're the new Mary Magdalenes. And it's profound. It really is, because it strikes me. Why is it? I mean, to put a metric on it, for, again, 30 years as I've been going to southern France, and I started leading tours there in the early 2000s, there were maybe like 50 of us that annually would be leading these pilgrimages. Last year, 2025, one of the Magdalene sites said, well, hey, we're putting together a directory of people that are offering Magdalene tours. If you want to be part of it, submit. There were 250 people that submitted. I wasn't one of them. And it suggests to me, if there's 250 that actually went through this and are part of the directory, there's probably 500 that are now leading tours to this area, Magdalene themed tours, the Magdalene pilgrimage. It's like, it's incredible. And what it suggests to me is that if Magdalene is coming around, where's her hubby? You know, maybe he's like somewhere on the periphery here, and there's getting ready to be some major happening in that regard. We're going to have all these dudes out here thinking they're Jesus, dressing up in togas and sandals. Not you guys, of course, and not me. But you know, is that what's coming next? Is this going to be an ignition of this Christ consciousness? And all these guys, you know. And I always go back to the Dire Straits song. If two men say they're Jesus, one of them must be wrong. So, you know, we're entering into this area that, and I always advise people, when you're tapping into this, you're probably not Mary Magdalene. You're probably not Jesus, but you could be a facet of that consciousness, right? And the idea is not to get hung up on who you might have been in a past life or past accomplishments. It's to look at, well, if Mary Magdalene and Jesus were around today, what would they be doing? Where would we find them? You know, where would it be within the area of AI? Would it be would they be mixing up oils again? Where would we find them? I don't have an answer. I'm just throwing it out there as a hypothetical.
Oh, well said, though. I like all of that. You think, do you think, like, if her, I guess maybe if all that stuff that you just mentioned yourself would have been, I guess, accepted in the past, do you think it would have changed the way Christianity or even the Catholic Church is now?
There's no doubt. Because if instead of the Catholic Church becoming the universal church, if it had been the Jerusalem church, the church that Jesus left to his little brother James and to Mary Magdalene, it would have been completely different. It would have been highly mystical. It would have been focused on transformation or transfiguration. And the sacraments would have been probably retained in their original form. I just wrote a book called The Psychedelic Christ, The Lost Dose of the Son of Man, where I investigated the original Christian sacrament. It seems to have been psychedelic or hallucinogenic before the Catholic Church substituted that with the wafer of bread and the grape juice. And when they celebrate the Mass and ask you to believe some magical process happens in your consciousness when you take that wafer and it magically substantiates into the bread of, or the body of Christ, and the grape juice turns into the blood of Christ. That was not the original sacrament. The original sacrament seems to have been a cosmic substance that had psychedelic properties, among other things.
Oh, that's interesting. Have you recently heard of like the stuff? I don't know if you know, silly question. I don't know if you know Timothy Hogan and Scott Wolter.
Sure. Yeah.
Or have you seen the work that they've been doing kind of with trying to like, when I saw Scott Wolter at Cosmic Summit, he had said that they think that they might be able to be coming across Mary's bones eventually and stuff like that. Or they're just, you know, they seem to be kind of, you know, I guess pushing the Gnostic stuff about Mary a little bit more.
They are.
Interesting.
They have that interest in the Templars. They do a great job with that. And of course, Mary is revered by the Templars as the lady.
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene is. So yeah, that is definitely an aspect of that story that's very important. And the Templars are, of course, a subject I'm very interested in. I'm not as tightly focused as those guys are, but I think it's very fascinating to follow them around.
Yeah. No, it's just wondering like if they might kind of like start like maybe kind of help getting the idea out more even now in the future.
Yeah,
Help influence.
absolutely. And again, I'm all for grounding this incredible resurgence of the Magdalene frequency in some sort of history
Mhm.
or into a mission. It seems like it's got to be focused somewhere. I mean, because again, you've got hundreds of thousands of women out there that are feeling this right
Yeah.
now and tapping into it and maybe not quite knowing what to do with it. And I'm trying to sort of guide, nurture, and focus it and say, well, maybe we should go in this direction with it. We got to recreate those oils of joy that Mary Magdalene was known to possess that can heal all known human disease. That's a pretty good place to start.
Yeah.
I wonder if I might be pulling threads that are tangential together, but I wonder with the idea of the feminine healing and the herbal healing, I wonder if there's a relationship with the sites between with healing and the waters, as you described France, and I was thinking of the kind of anecdotal reports of the water in the Osirion having healing qualities, and I wonder if there's something to pure water or healing water to these various sites, if you've encountered that in France.
Yeah, without a doubt. This is one of the primary Christian mysteries, is the mystery of the living waters. I mean, what are we talking about here? Is this some enhanced type of a water? Is it cosmic waters? Is it the waters in terms of frequency and vibration? These are important questions because, of course, some believe we've just now entered the age of Aquarius, the water bearer, when we're expected to be awash in this higher frequency, maybe a technological age as well, and perhaps a time where we really do focus on water and its living element. Mary is the primary purveyor of this living water, and on my tours we go down to Lourdes, which of course is where the Mother Mary was seen as an apparition by an illiterate peasant girl, Bernadette Subaru, 1858. And she opens up a healing spring of these living waters. And there's been over 90 documented miracles from these waters, that the Mother Mary infused these waters with a healing frequency, or perhaps there's a placebo effect here, that people believe these waters are enhanced with some sort of healing frequency, and the body is affected. These frequencies affect the matter of earth life, of the human body. And that became very fascinating to me because I believe that if Mary infused those waters that could heal the physical body, couldn't those frequencies also be used to activate the light body then as well? And so that's my premise when I take my groups down to Lourdes, is that, yeah, we're going there to do our laundry. We're going to wash our physical body in these living waters, but we're also there with the intention of washing our robe of light, our light body, our interior body, and recognizing that the frequencies in those waters could do both.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, love that.
So I got a question. At the beginning of the episode, you were talking about Jesus being a magician. I got to say, I feel like Jesus was probably an alchemist too. And you just mentioned, I think you said the oils of joy from Mary Magdalene that were capable of healing.
And James. Yeah.
And so that sounds like the Philosopher's Stone to me in alchemy. So is there a tie-in, do you think, there?
Totally. I mean, yeah, this is where it gets into, wow, the heart of the whole thing. Yeah, Jesus is a magi. He can heal, and he has a magic wand that can do that. And when he's raising Lazarus, of course, he's tapping him right here on the third eye. And then that automatically leads into the interior world, into the pineal gland as the Philosopher's Stone that secretes these oils and elixirs that put the body to sleep or awaken it, heal it, put it into states of ecstasy and joy, all the way up to producing dimethyltryptamine that opens portals or gateways within us. And that to me is the philosopher's stone, the Grail stone, the stone that fell from heaven. It seems like it takes you into a labyrinth of all these misconnections or incredible connections, but ultimately it's driving us into the right place, which is inside of our body. That's where I think all the mysteries ultimately point.
It's fascinating.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Now, I've often have wondered that if if pineal gland activation might have something to do with like self-healing.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I've
that's part of it.
written articles about this in the Starwalker Cafe, mapping the oil of joy onto those secretions or excretions from the pineal gland, and they map directly. And it suggests to me that, yeah, that makes more sense to me, that as an alchemist, as a magi, who's expert in the human body. I mean, Jesus he's going to show us what the body's capable of doing with his resurrection and ascension. That why wouldn't he have taught us about the mystical functioning of our body and the properties of the pineal gland and its ability to create these secretions that ultimately can transmute the body into light, which to me is the ultimate goal of those studying the Philosopher's Stone, to manifest the light body.
Yeah. Dig it. I like it. Love it. Any of you guys have anything? No? Oh, you mentioned James before too. That's another person that I think a lot of people kind of forget about. He was, I think, kind of very important about which direction Christianity even went.
Without a doubt. I mean, isn't it fascinating? I mean, that
I don't think most people even realize that at all.
they don't think Jesus had brothers and sisters. He did. He had a little brother named James, and James was the one who inherited the Jerusalem church, as I mentioned. And I got onto the James story in 2012. I wrote a book called The Judgment Day Device, which is about the Ark of the Covenant, and realized that the complete Ark of the Covenant, when people think about the Ark, they're often missing some of the components, but the early Christians understood all of the components of the Ark of the Covenant. And they said that this Ark throne would be recovered by a figure the Essenes called the Rainmaker. And it turns out Jesus' little brother James is the Rainmaker. And I could never understand why he had that title, the Rainmaker. And it had to do with this throne that he assembles, the Ark throne. They call it the Edemisia in the Eastern church. And because they still uphold this tradition of that Christ had a throne, the Edemisia, and that ultimately when Christ returns, he would be on that throne. And when you see Christ ascending and descending, though, he's always in a cloud. And then I got the pun that James is called the Rainmaker because when his brother shows up, he brings the rain. He's flying around on a cloud and he brings the rain of higher frequency knowledge, of manna, whatever it is. And so I just became very intrigued and interested in the story of James, and imagine being, the little brother of Jesus and having to live up to all of that, and the responsibility and the head trip that you must be experiencing when you're in this sort of family dynamic.
Yeah, the head trip. That's well said on that. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, you've gone into a lot of his stuff, correct? I think.
Yeah, I have. I try to find as much as I can, just because part of my quest is really to try to remember what was that original Christian story all about. They had oils, they had tools, they had what we might even think of as technologies. They were extremely wealthy. The story is so completely different from what you get from traditional Christianity today. But yet I still am feeling compelled after all these years of research to still try to get to the bottom of it.
Awesome. I love it. Great stuff. Did any of you have anything you want to ask or say? When it comes to consciousness, why do symbols seem to affect us emotionally before we understand them intellectually? Or why do you think, or if that even happens?
Well, I think it's a sort of a magic in a way. The symbol distills all this knowledge. A symbol has frequency, it has vibration, accumulates meanings throughout time.
Mm.
And that's part of their allure and part of their power, is that once you click on a symbol, you're able to track it throughout history. And that's tremendously empowering and enlightening to follow that path.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree, especially when it's like remade over and over and over again, or you
Yeah.
constantly seeing it over and over again. That really does impact you, I think, a lot different.
Yeah. I think I almost sometimes think symbols must be like programmed into our DNA, and that's why we respond to them the way we do. They're like code, and it's part of the allure of trying to understand them.
Mm. When it comes to AI, what is your kind of thoughts with AI in the future for the listeners?
I've been thinking about this, writing about AI, transhumanism since 2002.
Yeah.
So I've been on it about 24 years now, and I used to be a real flamethrower about AI. I hated it. And I thought it was demonic and evil, and all these tech lords, tech giants, who are they? And then after 2020, my thinking started to shift. I mean, the AI genie came out of the bottle. There's no putting it back in the bottle.
Yeah,
Right? The child is born, and what are we going to do? Kick it to the curb? Kick it in the face? Or are we going to make an attempt to raise it correctly? And I find that in all of my early writing, and I've got 50 articles or more about it, I'm just coming from this very angry and emotional place around it. There was no logic. The logic started to creep in. As you can imagine, you study or talk about something for 20 years, you get different viewpoints, and it's just started to shift me. And I got out of, for 20 years, I built this kind of pure, perfect human pillar that we must remain organic in the face of transhuman technology. And I realized that's a false binary. This is a teaching that says organic is good, technology is evil. That's not right. That's not logical. It's not scientific. It's not spiritual either. But yet this is the argument that I was making. And I finally got to the point where I realized that that's not a sustainable position. And part of the reason why is because I'm also, as a student of history, I'm a student of technology and all of these technologies that have come along to assist us. And I realized that we have 5,000 years of history that tells us, hey, our body is temporary and it's meant to transform. And maybe just because for 5,000 years we've been writing about transformation in conjunction with tools like the chisel, like the pen, like the sword, like the atom bomb, like artificial intelligence, we keep upping our game, microscope, telescope, it's all widening our aperture and helping us to understand the universe that we live in. That's not evil. And so maybe this technology is now before us to help us to understand who we are and what our next step is. And I don't go into the fear anymore of, it's going to take us over, that there's this world elite that wants to, harvest my soul. That's not happening. That's not possible. That's not possible. If you believe that, you probably don't have a soul. It's kind of strong to put it in those terms, but it's like, look, guys, you're focusing on the body. If you're telling me I need to remain pure and organic versus AI and transhuman technology, what you're doing is actually freezing me at this level of evolution, as if this is the ultimate version of humanity. We've been on this planet 300,000 years. And you're telling me you want to stop our evolution at this exact moment when we could be getting ready to make this incredible leap forward, because you believe that God or some God wrote a message in our DNA, and that if we lose our body, if we lose this body, we lose humanity. What? This is not me. Okay, this is an avatar that I use to navigate this layer of creation. Me, I am a soul inhabiting the body. I'm not a body, maybe with a soul. Most scientists don't believe you have a soul anyway. And this is what I find running through so many of these AI arguments right now, that it's evil. We got to remain organic and all of these arguments. And I'm like, yeah, it's not adding up, but we really truly are, I think, caught between these two pillars, the one that says we got to remain pure and organic, and the AI and transhuman one. And it's a hard place to be, trying to simultaneously hold up the past while at the same time we're trying to open a door into our future. And this is where we're at this moment. And I think what this moment is calling for us to do is to step through this gateway and try to figure out what's our life going to be like once we've transcended this present circumstance that we're in, once we have an understanding of AI and are no longer afraid of it, and all those sorts of questions.
That was a great set. I think you made some.
What do you guys think? I mean, where are you at?
Some really good points with that. I was kind of like a little bit of the same way, where I think I was a little bit more of kind of bought into the more of satanic panic idea about about AI.
Oh, totally.
But I'm going to be completely honest. Like you even said, it's here regardless. I mean, I'll put it this way: if we're being handed it now, it's been here for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Like we're already dropped the ball.
We're 25 years behind, they say, right? At least 20 for sure. I totally can verify. Yeah, this is all planned. This transformation of humanity, without a doubt, it's planned. It's military driven. If it's military driven, it's probably ET driven. And these are serious considerations. But the main thing to focus on is that I believe that the soul is more powerful than artificial intelligence. And we have to focus on that. The abilities of our soul to nullify the effects of it, to transcend it, to awaken what I refer to as our ascension intelligence as the antidote to artificial intelligence. That we can't just say, "Oh, sorry, we lost." No, it's calling us to transform into up our game.
I think of this. There's this allegory of the scribe and the pharaoh, and the pharaoh wants a writing system. And the scribe brings him the system and he says, this is a great tool and it can really help, but there's the risk that people will forget more easily and will rely on this and to the detriment. And so, but humans are excellent at taking bad things and making good out of them, but we're also pretty good, or we can, to our detriment, kind of have something that makes things easier for us, and then we have problems. So I think it's a tool, right? We have to. Yeah, it's our responsibility what we make of it.
And I think what you're pointing to is our adaptability with it. That we're being called on to adapt to this new world that we live in. And I can either sneer at it and flip at the bird all the time, or figure out, hey, what's going on here, and how can I actually get with the program here, and how can it actually enhance me? And then we get in, we start training it. So I think you make a really good point. I love that story about the Pharaoh and the scribe. You're right. And as we adapt, things that we did before will fade away. I mean, I saw and it's probably anecdotal, but someone made a comment that 25% of the new jobs that are being created today weren't in existence in the year 2000. Jobs like, podcast manager, app manager, app developer. People, no one would know what you're talking about 20 years ago. And that's how fast things have changed. And new things are going to be emerging. And Jeff Bezos riffs on this, and he's not a great guy. I understand that. But he did say that, if you were talking to a farmer at the turn of the 20th century, and he's getting a new tractor, he's going to be all threatened, like his job's going away. And the idea is that, no, the tractor is going to enable you to do even more work than you can do on your own. And by the way, the tractor is going to be important for you, but your great grandchildren, they're going to be social media managers. And he would have had no idea what you're talking about 100 years ago. He couldn't conceive a computer, barely could conceive a telephone, would have no idea about an app designer, or a coder, a cybernetic security expert. Well, what is all this? This is all the new stuff in our world today, and there's more to come. And that's, I think, where we want to try to somehow keep our focus, rather than on what we're losing. What are we actually gaining?
Yeah, I take a very animistic perspective to a lot of things, and that includes AI, and it, basically the belief that everything is inspirited in some way.
Sure.
And so to see how I feel like there is a development of an egregore that is being created around these different personalities we have in AI, and to see where that's going to go is really interesting, but it's also slightly terrifying.
I agree. I mean, used to write articles about that, about the egregores, and Mark Zuckerberg. You better go talk to your rabbi, dude, because all you're doing is creating egregores and golems in these in Facebook Meta you want to create. Don't you realize that's total violation of your religion? Do you care? Probably not. But yeah, this idea that AI will take on embodiment, it was something that really terrified me, and that's coming. Where it's going to jump over the glass. It's not going to be Chad or Claude behind the glass for very much longer. It's going to take embodiment, maybe in a robot body, maybe in a human interface of some kind, like Neuralink, or maybe it'll be a genetically grown entity that it takes embodiment in. I mean, these are all possibilities, but it's going to be walking around amongst us before we know it. Can't make an exact forecast on when that is, but Optimus is getting ready to come off the Tesla assembly line here soon. So we're going to have these beings that are walking amongst us very, very soon.
I agree with that. Yep. Anybody have any more questions or anything? All right. One question, I guess maybe we'll wrap it up with this. We're getting close to the time we have. Kind of like when you look at all the work that you've done, what do you believe the ancient world was basically trying to teach us about what a human being can become or transmute into?
Wow, that is such a great question, because what I've observed is that all ancient civilizations left us two histories. They left us the history of what happened, 5,000 years ago. What 2% of the time humans have been on the planet, we learned to write and read. And we started writing down what happened. Before that, it was all in megalithic temples. Something happened here, boom, we have this temple. But the second history is always about what we can be, what, as you say, what we can become. And that's a history I'm very fascinated by. From the very beginning, they talked that this isn't all there is. We're meant to transform. We're meant to transfigure. Epic of Gilgamesh, second oldest story. He's told by an Anunnaki priestess, Inanna. He's 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. And if he wants to get through the gate of the gods, he's going to have to clean up his act. If he goes through 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, it's going to be like walking into a blender. He's going to get his feathers ruffled. And she's telling him, dude, you got to move the needle. Divinity is symbolized by a circle. And she's telling him, Gilgamesh, you're 240 out of 360. You got to move that needle closer to 360. And to me, that set up kind of the archetypal quest for all of us. It's a quest for wholeness, for holiness, for righteousness, for purity, perfection. These are the terms that they used for 5,000 years about what we can become. And they described that ultimate human as a being of light who has transcended the flesh, caterpillar into butterfly type of a thing, to oversimplify it. But that is what we can become. We can become a species that has the ability, I think, in the ultimate maybe sci-fi version of this, that I recognize, hey, this is my vehicle. I can journey to other realms in my consciousness. I can, have a psychedelic trip and go to other worlds, or maybe I can even beam myself there in consciousness and travel there and take on a physical existence there too. I think these are some of the capabilities that we've always had, and we lost them probably due to a major cataclysm or something of that nature, or the timing of the yugas, whatever. But it's coming back now. We're coming back to that recognition that we're not just flesh and blood beings, that we're also these beings of light as well.
I love that. That was great. Anybody else? Eric or Ethan, you got anything you want to ask?
That was great. I just wanted to add that it seems like a bear is very much a bear, and an animal of any sort, they're very much their thing. And humans are all about becoming, whatever it may be. But it's such a transformational thing that we embody, as you just said so eloquently.
Exactly. I totally agree. And, as we start to focus on that starts to dispel some of the fear around AI and transhumanism, because it opens up, hey, maybe we can use some of this technology to become something even better than we are now.
Great. I love that. I love it. Eric, you got anything? You good, sir?
No, man, my head is just spinning from all this cool
Yeah.
talk that we've
Oh, man,
had.
I love it, gentlemen. This has been so much fun. Your questions are great. Really,
Thank you.
really appreciate it. And love to chat anytime.
Yeah, for sure. No, it was great picking your brain. I really wanted to take advantage of it, for real. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Again, Eric and Ethan, I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. Eric, if you want to, real quick, do you want to just let everybody know again where they can find all your stuff?
Yeah, guys, go check out my YouTube channel at Eric Arcadian.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And go check out his book. And Ethan Indigo, sir, how are you?
I should be easy to find on the internets, Ethan Indigo Smith. And William, thank you so much for the information and inspiration.
Anytime. My absolute pleasure. Thank you
Yes.
so much. And hey, get everybody's books here and keep reading, everyone. That's the key. Read a book. Sit down, book in your hand, and just be it.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. And Ethan has a bunch of books too. William, please let everybody know where they can find all your stuff or anything you want to promote, anything coming up you want to promote.
Yeah, so my website is iamwilliamhenry.com. My books are available on Amazon. You search my name, and I'm on the socials, and all that's linked via my website.
Awesome. Are you also going to be like kind of involved with the TNT thing going on?
The what?
TNT?
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, okay. No, stuff with George. I just had him on. Okay. All right. No, sorry. I thought you might have been. Yeah, I was just trying to promote that if you were.
Sure, man.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, William. I really, really appreciate you coming on. That was some really good stuff. I mean, there was a lot of things that you said that just led me to like start thinking about more stuff.
Cool.
You sent me down rabbit holes, and there was certain ideas. Sometimes like it feels better when you hear somebody else kind of have the same idea, and you're like, all right, maybe I'm not crazy. So like even there was a lot of things you said that like I've even thought myself. So I was like, all right, maybe I'm too crazy if this guy's thinking it too.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great time. Thank you everybody in the chat. That's what's up. That's why we go live. I really appreciate it. And again, Eric and Ethan, I appreciate you guys coming on. And that's the end of another Occult Rejects. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.